Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Town Council for reviewing of budgets for January 15th, 2015. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Of course, I didn't finish my statement. Congratulations.
You people weren't alive when I had to relearn that. No.
Okay, announcements. The town offices will be closed on Monday, January 19th for the observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. On Monday, January 19th, 6 p.m. in this room, the Matthew Thornton Room, the budget meeting will continue with fire, code enforcement, communications, police details, and discussion of the next steps in the budget process. On Thursday, January 22nd, at 7 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton Room, there is a regular council meeting. I'd like to make note that Councilors Dan Dwyer and Tom Koenig are excused from this meeting. And I'm assuming Councilor Mahan will be here momentarily. Just a couple of comments I'd like to make before the starting of the review. We do have some more information about the Kinder Morgan pipeline, and I wanted to make sure the public know about it. A joint letter was signed by the Federal Legislative Delegation and submitted to the Federal Energy Regulation Commission requesting an extension of the public comment dates in order to provide adequate opportunities for the stakeholders in New Hampshire to express their views and seek answers to important questions. This letter has been forwarded to Kinder Morgan, and copies of these letters have been placed on the town website for review by the public. I'd like to thank Senators Ayotte and Shaheen, as well as Congressman Ginta and Custer, for their attention to this matter. I also want to comment that Eileen Carbonell is still actively pursuing an individual meeting with Kinder Morgan with the town of Merrimack. We will certainly make public any information as it develops. Any questions from the council? No. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start the budget review for the topics this evening. We're going the order as posted. Library first, which is number 15. Yes, Eileen?
In this case, I'd like to draw your attention to the library budget that is the second document, because within the library you'll see two, one with just the summary numbers from actuals and the budgets, and then the detailed documents under, that gives the information about the number of employees and that kind of thing is what I'd like to draw your attention to. Does everybody have that?
I'm on the computer, so let me take a look.
You do.
You there?
Page 91?
I don't have a page 91. I look at it on a,
Yes, right there.
oh, okay.
Yes.
What's the last account number, just to make sure?
0115-8103 is the first one, and then the last one is 8910. 0115-8910 would be the last one. If you're using the Excel
looks like
spreadsheet,
this.
you have what she's talking about.
Okay,
That's the one she's talking about.
yeah, okay.
And I'm obviously going to let the library make their own presentation, but I wanted to draw your attention to this particular one because I wanted to talk about a cut that I made and something that I left in. So the first thing is the library directors have proposed a 2% wage increase for their employees. I did not include that in my budget. As I had promised all the unions, I would not be I personally would not be advocating for anything different than what they got. So I left that out, and that represents $14,715. And then the other thing that I wanted to draw your attention to, during all the discussions that you've been having with, Yvette and the new library board, concerns what the library of the future looks like, and we talked about technology and the changes to the library that need to occur because of technology. And Yvette, when we went over her budget, she explained to me that they had a technology person, not a Chuck technology person that comes in and just works on computers in a general sense, but a technology person that will bring them into the 21st century as far as being able to provide computer-type services to their public. And this current year, they had a part-time position, and they're having a really hard time keeping that position filled. The people come and go. So she has proposed, and for whatever it's worth, I endorse a full-time position because I think it's what we need, one of the things that we need most in the library realm. That's all.
So the head of technical services is that position that you're talking about? Okay.
Yes, and you'll also see down at the bottom of the part-time people, there were you see two empty spaces where there were positions before and now there are not. Is that right, Yvette?
Correct. It's actually digital services librarian one.
Oh.
So you're going to see under full-time, it's your fourth one down.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, ladies.
Okay.
Yvette, I'm not sure who's going to go first, but go right ahead.
I'll go ahead. Good evening. As Eileen just addressed, you'll see that the town manager adjusted the budget to remove the proposed 2% raise for all of our employees. We concur with that decision. However, we would like to submit a 73-cent raise for our part-time employees. Paul McCallie estimates this to be about $7,000. The last time our part-timers received a raise was in 2010. At that time, both full-time and part-time employees received a 1.5% cost of living raise. We feel that this would help our staff achieve wage parity with other town non-union part-time employees because in 2012, the part-time non-union town employees received a 73-cent raise, and the library trustees did not request a similar raise for the part-time library employees. You may recall in 2012, that was the year the health insurance was renegotiated. Full-time non-union town employees, including full-time library employees, received a $1,500 increase in part to offset that added out-of-pocket expenses they would incur under the new health insurance plan. But the Board of Trustees did not budget a raise for the part-time employees to match that of the town part-time non-union employees. Our hope is that going forward we'll continue the good communication that we've established with the town manager, town finance department, so that after this we're able to, when budgeting for raises, we're able to kind of be part of that conversation. Yvette has prepared, and I'm not sure if it was distributed to you, a spreadsheet that compares our part-time employee salaries with comparator communities. She took into account the length of employment at the library. Right. This data showed us that our staff is within range or at the low end of other staff salaries for similar jobs. All libraries staff their libraries based on their community needs, and our staff has more cross-trained responsibilities. Yvette noted the higher years for employees, but did not have that information for other libraries staff.
Just for your information, that was the spreadsheet that was handed out the last time. It's very colorful. Yeah.
Would you like me to pause for any questions on that at this point?
I just want, now that is not built into this. Okay.
Correct.
Anybody have any questions so far? Bill, go right ahead.
Looking at my budget book on page 91, under 01-15-8104-0, where it says wages hourly. Under the part-time line, there are 5 circulation aids listed in the budget that I'm looking at. The two aides that I'm concerned with is one, and Paul, please correct me if I'm wrong. There's one line that shows an average hourly wage of $17.91 and another one of $14.54. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yvette, you've given me a spreadsheet for those two people that show a current rate of $14.12 and $17.39 respectively.
Mm-hmm.
Why the discrepancy?
On the one you're looking at?
Yes.
Right here, that includes the 2% raise, so that 2% raise hasn't been taken out of each of those lines. So that's why you have 1791 and 1454.
Okay, I don't understand that.
Asking is, why is somebody paid $14 and somebody paid almost $18 for the same job, right?
Well,
I can
that's-
answer that for you. The person who is in the $17 range has been at the library since 1996.
Okay, so that's a tenure piece.
Yes.
Okay,
This person was also part of a retirement package, and there was an agreement made some years ago, and that also changed this person's rate of pay. The other person, you know, the range, we start them about $12.55, and then, you know, depending on what kind of raises the trustees would propose.
so just so that I'm, I don't want to sound daft.
Okay,
The report the spreadsheet that you were kind enough to put together,
yes,
those are the current rates.
yes.
Okay. In my budget book, that is the 2%.
In the budget book that you received, I had figured in the 2% for
Okay,
my
so when I look,
trustees, and that's what you're looking at, but that was adjusted at the bottom.
so
Keep going, Bill, I'm with you.
I am still
I'm with you.
confused because you're proposing a 73-cent increase that brings it up to 18.12. And if the budget book reflects a 2% increase, why am I seeing 17.91?
We didn't take out the 2%
Right.
in the line.
The library budget gets brought to the council as presented by their board of, their board,
So not,
automatically. The only way we can make an adjustment, Eileen can make an adjustment, or the council, is a bottom line adjustment to the library. Eileen made the bottom line adjustment of $14,715 to take into account the 2% raise that was proposed by the library board. I have to present the budget the way it was presented to the town manager, to the town council.
So if you want to see on page 95, under the town manager column, it shows a grand total of $1,047,458. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do.
And then I subtracted out $14,000 because I can't tell them where they remove it from.
And I agree.
Okay.
I get that.
So right now, the budget was put forward with the 2%. In talking with the library, they came back and said, okay, what happens if we do a 73 cents? We went back to their current rate, which is, for instance, the, one of the aides, I'm looking at one of the aides, the 1739, the first position in the book that says 1791, really is a 17th, she's being paid, or he's being paid 1739. They're adding 73 cents to it to come out with the new rate would be $18.12. On that sheet, and that's
So-
what she's, these are the actual wages that if you went to the library tomorrow and asked any one of these part-time people for their pay stub, that's the rate that will be shown on the pay stub, what's being shown on this rate sheet here,
on this rate sheet.
on this rate sheet here.
Right. So, not to single people out, which I hate to do, and I apologize. Just focused on the highest wage earner. Part-time aide, 1, circulation, 1739. I'm having a hard time understanding, and like I said, I apologize for being daft. I understand the cut from the bottom line. So are you saying that the budget that I have here, that the town has put in front of me for 1791. That's the proposed increase that's being made for that line?
2%.
No,
That's the 2% increase.
right,
As
that was the
proposed by the
2% increase, so
trustees.
that's
More
been
than that.
taken out. So kind of all these numbers in that
This
second
is
column
the
are
original
different.
proposal from them, was a 2% raise. This one appears, if I take 1739 and subtract out 1791, comes to 52 cents, and divide it by, what is it again? 1730, oh, wait a minute, keep your shirt on. That's actually 3%, so I don't know why that is.
So in our deliberation, we have three choices. We can say, we can say no raises. We could say, okay, the 73 cents, or we could go with the 2% or whatever it is here. But we can't change that. We can only change the bottom line.
Correct. And then.
And then they make the deliberation as to where they're going to add, subtract.
Correct.
Gotcha. Did that make any sense?
If we approve the town manager's budget as presented, that particular employee is going to get a 50-cent increase as opposed to 73 cents.
No.
Based on what, that's how I interpret it.
No.
That's how if we
Okay.
go by this,
Right.
they get 73 cents. If I go by this, they only get 50 cents.
Right.
Am I right or am I wrong?
If you went by this, they would get none. They would get no increase because she's taken it out.
Eileen's taking it out, giving it back to the library to say, look, you gotta come up with $15,000 of cuts. How are you gonna do that? They can come back and cut another line if they wanted to and still give this raise. But in talking to them, they have already said that we will take out the 2% raise. We understand why you proposed it. We are in agreement with you. We'll take it out of the raise column and they'll go back. And then the final budget, when it goes for adoption, once they give me their revised numbers, that will be put back in here and the rates will be brought back down to the,
I understand the bottom line. I understand the library board of trustees can do whatever they please because that's mandated by statute. I get that. I don't get the numbers.
I think people are misunderstanding what you're asking, but what you're trying to get across is correct. If the library were to give this person supposedly a 2% raise, it would be the 52 cents. If they got 73 cents, it's 73 cents. So for this particular person, it's more than 2%.
That's what I'm getting.
Right.
That's what I'm getting at.
But for the full-time people, they get nothing.
I understand.
So that's how it kind of,
Right, I understand that
so
piece.
you're right.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
Lon?
Is an old fellow's way of understanding it is there ain't no numbers yet?
There are numbers.
But I mean solid numbers. Depending on our action, the library board of trustees will have a target number to work with.
Yes,
They don't have that number yet.
right.
Correct. Thank you.
Does that
I'm good.
enough? Tom?
Yeah, so what's the pay scale for these positions?
I have it,
No, this isn't a pay scale. This is a pay rate. Do you have a scale?
I have scale under Merrimack. Under the Merrimack column, that's our range.
And why are we at, then, yeah, okay.
That's what that,
And this one's out of the range.
that one's out of the range, yeah, because of the special agreement they have with.
That is an unusual situation, because this staff person has been here since 1996 and has accrued raises when the previous library board has granted cost of living raises and was part of a retirement package. So there was an
years.
agreement that was made, and
Okay,
I'm kind of, I'm trying to work with what I have,
I
quite
understand.
honestly.
I understand.
Okay.
It's not,
And,
you know.
and it's one person who does look like they stick out above the range. I absolutely acknowledge that. I see what you see.
And that's
Should-
why I'm
should-
asking why there's a range, because if there's
Yeah.
a range, there's
There's
a
a range.
range.
There is.
That's it.
This person is above the range.
Okay.
I see the same thing you see. I discussed that with my trustees too, so.
And, you know, and predecessor
Mhm.
boards of trustees
Mhm.
have granted pay increases when town employees get zero
Okay,
on several occasions.
okay.
Okay, so they were getting bumped at times when other positions within the town, full-time and part-time,
Mhm.
were not getting anything.
Okay.
Because the trustees were saying, hey, this is our number,
Mhm.
we can do whatever we want with it. Okay, and so they did.
Mhm.
All right, so, what you're giving me here is, and this is a statement on my part, by the way, it's not really a question. What you're giving me here is what this might look like if you were in a competitive market, right?
Mhm.
Okay, and this isn't really a competitive market, is it?
To us it is.
In what way?
If I post a job and someone who lives in commuting distance from any of these communities are gonna go for a job I post or a job that another library posts, then they might choose to go to another library to work instead
Well, how
of
many
to
times
me.
has that happened?
Well, I don't know how many times that happens. I know how many times people leave my library in this part-time reference position to go get full-time work elsewhere. That's more the struggle that we're having here, is keeping a professional librarian in a part-time position.
But that's a change in classification, going from part-time
Yes.
to full-time,
Yes,
okay? And that would be, that's a reasonable job move in my, you know,
absolutely, yes.
in that circumstance, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so, you know, so I'm trying to, you know, take a look at this, and I don't really consider Salem or Derry being within commuting distance. Hudson, yeah, at the end. Bedford, yeah,
Yeah,
all right? But you don't have Nashua in here, you don't have Amherst in here.
those aren't good comparators for us. Just to explain, Nashua is a union library, so it's not a great comparator for us. There are people that commute long distances to get to their job. I used to do it. I commuted from
Well,
Durham
Okay,
to come here. So, you know, library jobs are very few and far between. And you go where the work is. You know, I mean, what we have here, we have staff who have been at the library, they're loyal. I'm making them work, I'm cross-training them, I'm giving them more responsibilities. I'm trying to work with the people I have at the pay rate they have. But if they've been here for 20 years, I can't begrudge them staying and being loyal to a business for 20 years. We live in a society that acknowledges that and recognizes that and rewards that. So
what, are they staying here for the money, or are they staying here for something
they're
else?
staying here because they love working at the library. They love Merrimack. Yay for Merrimack, you know, that they love this town. They
So it's
love
more the
working with
intrinsic
people.
value of the individual than it is the extrinsic value of the pay.
I don't think anyone goes into library work for pay. You know, it's
Well, pay is
not
number
lucrative.
5 on the list, by the way. Everybody
Sure,
think
sure.
people leave forever. Whenever an applicant would tell me they left for better pay,
yeah,
they're lying,
right.
okay? Because the main reason people leave is because they got bad bosses. Or honest to God, okay, I
That
did
doesn't
that
look too good for me.
I did it for.
The person
Well,
people
no,
are
when
leaving
somebody's
under.
when somebody's
Okay.
moving from a part-time position to a
Mhm.
full-time position, that's no reflection on you,
I hope not.
okay? That's not a reflection on you.
Yeah.
And maybe it is, because maybe you prepared them enough so that when they competed for that position, they were successful,
Qualified.
Yeah.
okay? So, you know, what I mean, I've done enough
Yeah.
job screening, you know, when a person comes in and says, oh, I left for better pay, I go right away and look at the application. 9 times out of 10, they're lying. So you gotta look at underneath what went on, what's going on here. And most people, honestly, people that change jobs, the single most important reason they leave is because the work environment or the supervision. Okay, and that's why they leave. I did unemployment hearings for 26 years. Okay, I saw that stuff come across the table. I consulted with my members, municipalities, about this stuff, and it was the same issue. Okay, so, you know, they're not, you're right, they're not here for the pay. They're here for the involvement, for the other things, the people they're working with, and those other issues. Okay, for the most part, they're not here for the money. It's number 5 on the list. So, okay, I'm done.
Finley?
I didn't know if it'd be helpful to, at some point, have a better understanding of this retirement component, because I know that there was, the town did offer, I guess, a plan that wasn't recognized by the IRS or somebody, and so it had to be changed. So for me, it might be closer to the scale here that is shown, if I had a better understanding of that piece, I think. And I don't need it tonight, but if it's something I might get.
I do not have the exact dollar of what the person got. What happened was the town had its own retirement system back
Right.
in 2003, 2004, when we changed over to New Hampshire retirement system. New Hampshire retirement system does not allow part-timers to join the retirement system. At the time, in the old system that the town of Merrimack was under, they allowed part-timers to be part of the retirement. What happened is that the town manager and the town council at that time decided that these people, since they would no longer be putting in to the retirement system, they would give them a bump in wage as compensation for not being on a retirement system anymore. I do not have the exact dollar amount for this person. We've had 2 other part-timers that I know of that was included in their wage, and they're not in this situation where they're overscale, just moved them along the scale a little bit further. But that's what was, in a nutshell, that was what was happening, is that the town was offering part-timers retirement if they had a regular schedule and other factors. And once we went to New Hampshire retirement system, they said, no part-timers allowed. And the government at the time said, give these people additional money for that lack of benefit that they're now not receiving.
Was part of that not responding to a cap? Because basically, when you're talking about a range, there's a cap.
Right.
Was
I don't
part
know,
of that
I don't know this.
Agreement
They didn't.
was,
I don't think they had a cap at that time.
Yeah.
okay,
It was an open-ended deal, and they just kept going.
they didn't have a range.
Yeah.
Range was when, I think Hickey came on board, we had him put together a range, and I didn't know it
Because
included
we've
the
been
library.
having this
but-
discussion on a regular basis,
Right,
okay? And that was one of the first issues that we dealt with, is you've got no ceiling.
right.
Right.
And if this is what it is, I'm good with that, and it might be actually possibly within or closer to that range for that one position.
Yeah, I can check that out and go back through the files, or Yvette can check that out. I
Yeah.
believe you have the files
Mhm.
for this person, and she can
Mhm.
check that out and get back to me, and I'll get back to you. I don't know exactly how much. It was different for every person. I remember that. It was different for every person. It depends on, here's a service, what they were gonna get, and everything else. There was a long mathematical computation for that.
Okay, so regardless, the council will have to make that deliberation at some point. Great, okay. Okay, now you can go ahead. Continue.
Okay, so still under personnel lines, we propose adding a digital services librarian 1 position. In order to make less of an impact on the tax rate, we plan to combine 2 existing part-time positions from our reference department into this full-time position. Thereby, we only need to increase for the full-time benefits. Yvette can explain a little more detail what the digital services librarian position is.
Yeah, we're really seeing a trend, you've probably seen this trend as well in libraries over the past couple of years, that electronic services is growing. We're definitely seeing that in Merrimack. We have more patrons coming in more frequently to make appointments with our reference librarians to talk about how to use our electronic services or how to work their devices, especially after Christmas. People will come in with their new phones, tablets, you name it, and they make an appointment and they want to know how to use this thing that their family gave them or something like that. So we're seeing a trend, and we're not really interested, I'm not really interested as a librarian, as a director, to buy into a fad. I think I'm a little more conservative and careful than that, but I definitely want to pay attention to a trend. And this one has been growing. The other libraries in the state of New Hampshire have also been adding digital services librarian positions to address this. The staff currently can kind of fit in this kind of work and addressing these questions, but it's really still dividing their time. It's not giving 100% to researching and implementing and really choosing what's best for our community, which database is best, which anything really. I mean, there's so many things that can come down the pike. A lot of times you'll hear it called emerging technologies. So we really want to be on the cusp of that and not get left behind. I think the struggle that we've been having with the part-time positions turning over so frequently, as Eileen kind of alluded to, is that we get someone in who's great, we train them, they leave for a full-time position, hopefully a little more equipped, having worked with us, and they take the skills that we had trained them with and they take it to another community. This happens so frequently. It is such a drain on time and business and resources. It just seemed like we could wait for maybe a full-timer to retire and shift that position, or we could force it. And right now we have an open position and we're just keeping it open and filling it with, I'll jump in and cover the desk. Our full-timers will come in and cover. We're shifting our schedules around. But I did bring this concern to my trustees and said, here's a couple things that we can do. And they said, let's just do it. Let's not wait. So that's kind of the reasoning behind adding a position now, so that we don't get left behind. I am a little concerned about that. Right now we're making do with having our regular reference staff, but sometimes you can have someone who's really focused on that specialty in library school or in their professional life right out of school. That's their specialty, so that's something we're looking at. We're hoping also that if we could get someone who might be able to do some other troubleshooting with the hardware and software, that they might have those skills too. Right now we outsource that for some of the bigger issues. So just trying to keep it a little more efficient in our building. Any questions about that?
Bill?
Position?
Do you have an actual job description
I
written
do.
down for the position?
I do.
Okay.
It's not finalized, but I have one if you want to see it.
At some point.
Okay.
Follow up.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Sure.
I actually see the value to this
Mm-hmm.
because Merrimack is, I'm going to rotten heck for this, but Merrimack's not exactly a young community per se. So it might be easier
You're gonna-
for an older person who gets a Nook or a Kindle or an iPad that instead of driving to Nashua to go to a Genius Bar and have to deal with all the young whippersnappers that,
Yeah.
No, hipsters.
hipsters, thank you.
I was going to whippersnappers. You're the one who's showing your age.
Well, I am showing my age, and I'm the youngest person on this board, so
Yeah, the union leader called them the other day hipsters.
hipsters.
Yeah, Hal 50s.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you, when I got my iPad and I went to Apple, I felt absolutely, and I was in my 30s at the time, and I felt intimidated.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. So I think there's a value to offering this position in town, because I think coming to the local library where you've got somebody who's not judgmental, who's there to serve the person, to explain, this is how you download an audiobook onto your iPod, or this is how you access your Barnes and Noble or what have you on your Kindle to be able to buy a book, and this is how you do. I think there's value to that. I really do. I just would like to see the job description so that I have a better idea. I think there's going back to 2012, where we were kind of alluding to just briefly. I lamented over we weren't making a commitment to digitizing our library or making a commitment to stuff that's becoming more computer savvy. So I think this is a need, and I think I give you a lot of credit for for thinking about it, and keeping track of your data to make sure that you can justify it, so. But to wrap up and circle back, I'd like to see a job description so that I feel good about
Okay,
it. But thank you, I think it's a great idea.
okay. It's nice to have that confirmation that you're seeing what we're seeing.
Well,
That's helpful.
I urged your predecessor to start this
Yes.
in 2003. And it took a while before she tumbled to the state library system, which my wife was using on a regular basis by then. It was really kludgy at the time, but, she could still use it. So, yeah, I'm in line with what Bill said. This is long overdue for this town and for the library to get that done. And by the way, it's 1/2 to 1.5 times annual salary to replace an employee. In training time, it's all those stuff you don't see. The extra supervision, the extra time.
You feel it.
And, yeah, you do feel it, okay? And like you said, the dislocation in the organization and all that other stuff. So in the long run, you can quantify that as to how you're offsetting some of this cost in here, as you're really, as you said, making yourself more efficient.
Okay, want to proceed?
Okay. Let's see the next thing. We added a little bit under travel and meetings, just to make sure if we do get this new position that they can go to training as well and stay up to date on the things that we want them to. So I just added a little bit there. Kind of moving into the maintenance buildings, 8321. We added a little bit to this line because we've seen a lot of repair work in air conditioning, our HVAC unit, and it's the individual units now. We had, about a year ago, replaced the chiller barrel on the exterior. That stays at the exterior of the building, but now we're seeing the individual units needing some maintenance, extra work, parts replaced. So just trying to plan ahead for that kind of thing. And then the sprinklers, the dry sprinkler system, it's an older system, and we're just trying to make sure we plan ahead for that kind of repairs that seem to come up.
How old are those individual units?
The units are probably 1979. And what we've seen,
Inefficient, too.
well, yeah, what we've seen is the technology that's in the unit may or may not be supported by a vendor that's going to work on it, because their technology is changing in the HVAC world. So we put it on the CIP for a major overhaul sometime down the road, but for right now, we're just trying to maintain it as best we can when something happens. And then we added a little bit in electrical and plumbing. Same thing, we had some issues that had to be addressed. I doubled those lines for electrical and plumbing. We did add a line for snow removal. The maintenance position, that used to be a full-time position, we have a part-time, that's a part-time position now. And what we've noticed over the past year, since this person has been in a part-time position, or we've had a part-time person in the position, that we've had to outsource some of the outside work. Things like some of the landscaping gets done by either volunteers, or we hire a contractor to do some of this stuff. The snow removal has been a challenge in terms of clearing the walks and the doorways and things like that. You know, that's of course hard to predict, because you never know what the weather's going to be like any given winter. But it just seems that to be better prepared, and maybe rather than being, maybe to be a little more offensive about it, or rather than waiting to see what happens, we're just going to try and plan for it. and tried to do a kind of conservative number to have someone be able to be on a contract with us to come in and shovel. Let's see, kind of keep.
Oh, sorry,
Yes.
Lon.
Brings to mind my favorite question. The snow removal, is that for labor or materials?
I assume that was for labor.
Okay.
I don't know what kind of materials are involved besides a shovel. I don't know. Do you know something I don't know about shovel?
Well,
Salt.
ice
Oh,
melt,
salt. No. We were talking about just hiring someone to do it. I did not. Right now, we have in our lines to have salt, to purchase salt. I don't think that's a problem.
So the extra effort is for labor,
Yes.
not for added material?
No.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bill?
I guess a question for Eileen. Is there any opportunity here to work with the library with resources that we have at Town Hall to work on these particular issues, or is this a straight library issue by itself?
I believe that that is the case, and I thought that, as a matter of fact, that was being done. So it surprises me a little bit that it isn't. So I will need to speak to Rick Seymour about that, and I'll get back to you.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for putting you on the spot. Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Eileen, we can talk about that too. The plowing is great. You know, there's just certain areas that the staff need to do. Okay, moving on. Computer services, we increased, because our GMILCs were part of a consortium, as you know, the Greater Manchester Consortium, and our rates go up every year, so I just increased that. This is so that we can run the computers that check in and out materials. We have a common borrower card. It's a very powerful tool that we want to continue to be part of. Under materials, we added a database called Atomic Learning. Atomic Learning is a parent company for something called Atomic Training, which is the software that libraries use. The schools use a school version of this, but we wouldn't have access to that. But Atomic Learning is something that provides unlimited access to thousands of short videos covering more than 500 software application courses comprised of thousands of short training videos. Basically, this is stuff that you can get on our website, log in with your card, and learn about how to use that device. So if we're closed, or if our reference librarians want to use this to supplement training a patron, if we wanted to use it during a workshop that we're holding for a large group, if people want to access this from home, it's really been recommended to us by other libraries too, that this would be good for patrons and for staff training.
So this can program, or whatever, would you call it a program?
It's a database, but you can
Database.
learn about a lot of things.
Okay, so
and
that can
it's
be accessible from
video
home via the
tutorials,
web?
yes.
Okay.
Let's see.
Yes, Tom?
yeah, I'm
Yes.
sorry, could you go back to the computer services? You've got consortium, then you've got
Yep.
something else in there, and then you have automation. Are those three separate components that go into that number, or are they all combined into one?
Those are different aspects of being part of a consortium. We have consortium dues because we purchase. We have group purchasing with our consortium. You know, if we buy
Right.
in together.
Yeah.
So that's part of being part of the consortium. CBC is common borrower card, so you can use your Merrimack card in Bedford. Same vice versa, Bedford can use their card here, and you can do that throughout, I think it's 12 libraries we're up to now. We're kind of courting some other libraries to join us. But that's public libraries and a couple of academic libraries too, that you can go to their location and check out there. And then the automation is our computer. That's how we are cataloging everything. That's our holdings. That's how you see it when you log into our website. That's what you're seeing. That's what automation is.
Could you get me a breakdown on that, or I don't know, my other colleagues want to see what the component cost for each one of those things is?
Yes, I can.
And, right, because I was gonna, ask a question on that. I just was wondering, I mean, there's the tangibles, I guess, must be computer hardware that's required for doing
That's
these
in a
type-
separate line.
Oh, that is,
This
okay.
is just being part of the consortium.
Okay, so,
Yes.
because then my question was gonna be, now that that's all separate stuff, is that, how do they break it out? Is it by population or?
We have 2 GMILK staff, and they, when it comes time to pay our dues, each library paying their dues, they do create our bill based on a calculation, a formula that's based on how many card holders we have, what's our population, what's our holdings, how many items we have, and then it's so my dues Merrimack's dues are different than Hooksit's dues because we're larger than Hooksit. But there's a formula that does go into that. I can get you this information, yes.
You do any calculation on use? They track use by member?
Yeah.
Does
I
that
mean,
go in, is that a component of the,
I can get
Structure?
you the formula.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, I'll tell you, it's very valuable.
Um,
It's
no,
worth
no,
every
I'm
penny,
not
so-
questioning that.
Okay.
I just would like to see
Yeah, okay, no problem.
the numbers.
Okay. The last thing, I believe, is that we increase the line for the building improvements or major repairs. Again, just seeing the kind of maintenance we've had to do and repairs on the building, we wanted to be more prepared for that. We did also put in our capital improvement program, trying to plan ahead for, thinking about the roof, when the roof needs to be replaced totally, or different things we want to do in the library. We're trying to rethink the floor plans. That's some of the projects we're doing right now. In the same way that we changed the Lowell room from just a room that had stacks, we changed that so that it could be a reading room and a meeting room, because that was the need we had. We had a need for a meeting room and more quiet space. We're still seeing that, that's still a need for us in this current location, so we're trying to plan different projects where we're playing with the floor plan. So there's some costs that we're estimating for those projects.
Any other questions? I have a naive question. And if not, I'm not questioning it, I just need to understand.
Sure.
Business manager and director, what's the difference in jobs?
What's the difference between my job and the business?
I mean, what is the, because I know, I'm not saying that,
Yeah.
I'm not questioning the need. I just know a lot of places they do both. Not for librarians, I'm talking other positions. So I'm just trying to help me understand.
Mhm.
I mean, business manager is the money? Is that? What?
Quite honestly, I think the title is kind of arbitrary.
Okay.
I think office manager would be a better title, but I didn't name her.
I understand.
I didn't name this person.
So it's not such a silly question.
Huh?
Okay.
I mean, as the director, my job description says that I am the CEO of the library, and I have I have the authority, and I'm managing people in the building and the finances and making sure the policies are upheld and written. I'm representing the library to boards like yourself, to my trustees, representing the library at different committees throughout the state. And then the business manager, again, office manager would be a better title, is kind of handling things that's going on in the building. This person is the direct supervisor of the maintenance staff. So if there's a problem, it doesn't have to come to the director. it can go to that person, and then if it's important, then I need to
So
hear
that
about it.
person works directly with you?
Directly
and
under
probably
me.
is almost like your assistant to a certain extent?
Chief of Staff.
It's not anything
Yeah,
that,
you know, I mean, I don't know if I could say that because, you
Chief
know,
of staff doesn't fit.
I'm,
No.
I'm handling my own paperwork and filing and,
Right.
and mail and stuff
yeah,
like
I
that.
thought you would.
I don't want to push off
Right, those responsibilities.
administrative duties to that person because they're already full of their own duties. This person actually handles the website as well, ordering supplies. It really is office manager
Okay.
is better.
It's like an office manager.
But, you know, the person we
Okay.
have in that position.
That makes more sense to me.
It makes more sense to me too,
Okay.
and maybe we need to talk with the trustees about
That's-
changing it.
Yeah, but that's why I needed a little
Mhm.
clarification.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? No? Okay, apparently we are done. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
We'll get together tomorrow about the
Absolutely.
stuff that
Okay.
they asked. Council asked.
Okay, the next is going to be assessing, which is number 2.
Nancy?
Oh, sorry. Eileen.
Do you mind if we skip assessing and let the people that are here do theirs first? So, tax collector, town clerk, and community
Oh,
development
I asked
do
you that
theirs, and the
early.
rest of us, rest of it is us.
I'm sorry, tax collector's next.
Tax collector, okay. Tax collector, town clerk is number 24. You have to go for a minute. Okay, Eileen?
The only thing I wanted to say, this is very similar. And I may have this wrong, Diane, because we haven't looked at this for a while, but I believe Diane had proposed also a 2% raise for her employees, which I did not include in my recommended column. She also included a part-time person, which I included in mine. So a part-time clerk to,
You did include.
I did include the part-time person, did not include the 2% raise.
Okay, you got the floor.
First of all, I'd like to introduce to those who are watching at home and may not know her, the Deputy Town Clerk, Brenda Dumont. Brenda Dumont.
Well, someone does not have their,
Oh, it's me.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so for those watching at home who didn't hear that, I'd like to introduce the Deputy Town Clerk Tax Collector, Brenda Dulong. Brenda was highly involved in crafting this year's budget with me. The both of us went through each line item very carefully to make sure things were in line. Brenda did a lot of review of certain line items, specifically with purchasing. She is in charge of all purchasing in the department and works together with me on our long-range planning, our supplies and equipments, and our anticipated needs of the department. So that's why she's here with me tonight.
welcome.
As Eileen mentioned, I did request an increase in the wages for the clerical staff and for the deputy town clerk tax collector position. The clerical staff has, for quite some time, expressed some concerns and frustration over the workload, the increased demands that they have with technical aspects and legal ramifications. The job has changed over the years with just the whole general knowledge and technical detail that they need to know. We have been seeing job ads from various communities that we've been tracking, and I think the thing that's important to remember is they're doing 2 jobs. And we are seeing communities that are hiring for a clerk in the tax office only or a clerk in the clerk's office only. And some of these communities are starting pay at higher rates than some of our people who have been here for 15 years. So that is something that has been brought forward to us as their supervisors and managers. And I have to agree and support my staff that there is some disparity out there. I mentioned to Eileen, we had an on-call part-time person in our department, and she left for a neighboring community. They offered her a permanent part-time position, and she started at $3.50 more than we were paying her to work here in Merrimack. So I do believe that the wages maybe do need to be looked at some point. Whether or not you see fit to put anything in for this year, at some point I think that it needs to be examined. With regard to the deputy, Brenda is taking on more and more responsibility. I am tasking her with a lot of things with the collection process in the taxes and the billing, and we have a number of projects that we want to bring forward that we hope will be to the benefit of our community, such as we've talked about credit cards eventually, some of our online programs and things of that nature that, quite frankly, I haven't had time to get to, and I am giving her those responsibilities to try to better make the department flow and to improve our services to our community. She has, again, been taking on more responsibility of a technical nature and a legal nature, things that, you know, will affect the town should we do something wrong, and so therefore I thought she was deserving of a pay increase as well. With regard to the part-time position, as I mentioned, we had an on-call person who was working for us on an on-call basis, and she was the only clerk in the area that was available to come in, that I'm aware of, that could come in when we needed her. Her hours in her other town were evening hours. She worked at a small town, mostly evenings, so she could accommodate us during the daytime. She has since taken another position with another town, and we don't have her anymore. It has been a struggle for us to keep up with the workload, just losing that person. We have long tenured employees in the department. Taking into consideration vacation time and personnel leave alone, we operate 6 months out of the year shorthanded. We have a part-time person currently who we cannot offer due to the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare more than 28 hours a week, where in the past, if we had somebody out on a long-term leave or vacation, we could say, hey, do you want to work the whole week? That's not an option for us anymore. Hence, we are requesting a part-time person to help keep up with the workload. Our volume of work is increasing. I just received the phone report from Chuck. I'm looking at the phone report, and some of our employees, myself included, are handling more phone calls than some entire departments during the course of a year. We are a very, very busy department. I don't think the public realizes it when they get nobody's answering the phone and they're getting the voicemail. I don't think they understand just how much we do, and this additional person will clearly help to alleviate that.
Okay, quick question, Eileen. On this page, it says, because I'm looking at it, what you're talking about, Diane. Temp part-time, it's blank, right?
Yes.
And the temp part-time tax, that is someone, is that literally?
Yes, that's somebody who comes in those week before taxes are due and sits at the tax window.
Yeah.
So that people don't have to wait in line with their tax payments. They
Okay,
can go
so the
right to her.
temp part-time
The temp part-time
is the one that you're,
is the one that we are taking the funding out and creating a permanent part-time position at, I believe it was 24 hours a week.
but
And
that's,
the temp part-time tax is the person who comes in and mans our express window at tax time. And we also do use her on occasion from time to time. When we have somebody who's out on sick leave or what have you, we do use her to come in, but again, it's not a perfect scenario. She's not trained to do motor vehicles and things like that, but she can come in and help us with filing and getting mail out and things like that.
So I guess where I'm asking is, where is the new one? You said you would approve that part.
Yeah, that's the
Yep.
1,040-hour one, the second
Ah,
The
temporary
account clerk
position.
two,
clerk
the
two.
second,
Yes.
Gotcha.
the second one down,
Right.
yes.
Gotcha, okay, now I understand.
Yep,
Because you've already got the one which is 1,300, this would be the 1,040, okay, gotcha.
correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Other changes within the budget are pretty standard changes. Office supplies, we've increased $500. The state mandates the type of printer and toner that we can use. They are no longer, or they're cutting back with providing us with forms. So most of our forms are now being printed out of their motor vehicle printer. That toner is quite costly, so you'll see a cost increase to cover that. Postage increases are
Yeah, but
expected.
they're not downshifting any costs. Understand that, ladies and gentlemen. They're not downshifting anything.
There is expected to be an increase in postage.
Double collection.
Yeah.
And the only, let's see, the other change is with travel and meetings. As some of you are, or all of you should be aware, Brenda is currently attending the New Hampshire Town Clerk and Tax Collector Joint Certification Program. We previously have not been budgeting mileage for her to travel to that. We also, with a new employee, will have to send a new employee to training. There's various certifications and trainings that a new employee will have to undergo. And with, as I mentioned, the job changing over the years, it's kind of morphed into something beyond, over the years. I liken it as, I say my people really need to be a paralegal, honestly. I don't think the title gives them service to what they do. They now have to go to training a couple of times a year with motor vehicles and vitals and elections to keep up with what they need to know to be able to service our residents professionally and accurately. So there is an increase there. And the last, there's an increase in maintenance office equipment. Our vendor has a price support increase, which is reflected. And then last but not least, in the 8504 office equipment, we are requesting $875 to replace our computer monitors. They are currently 10 years old. There are days that I sit at a monitor and we watch the screen shake and jiggle, and I say, I don't know how some of my girls don't go home with a migraine every night because they're constantly trying to adjust the monitor. They're just, it's time.
When they constant use.
Yep, all day long, all day long.
Excuse me.
Yes, John?
Would dual screens be a benefit?
I'm sorry?
Dual screens. Yes or no?
I honestly, I'm not sure. I don't see why not, where they can keep maybe their tax program open and their clerk program open and not have to be toggling back and forth.
They short money.
I don't think they,
It might be,
Yes,
that's what
that
I was
was
gonna
gonna
say.
be-
There's not enough room on their desk for a monitor and what they have now
The
Yeah.
two.
on the
That-
paperwork.
and that
But
would
it's
be my
something to look
concern
at.
as well. Yeah, they're very tight where they are with the equipment.
Finley?
I'm not familiar with the dual screen, but I am familiar with a very large monitor that you can open up 3 pages on the thing, so I don't know if it would require a dual. I've not seen that, but, and they're cheap, I know they are.
Mm.
Back in August, the clerks now have this large printer that used to sit on the floor, now sits up on the counter alongside of their terminal. There is not enough space with 4 girls across that counter to have a very large screen or dual.
So why don't you hang it from the roof and have it drop down?
Yeah, but then how do you wait on the customer and have
And have it in-
and have them
There's-
looking like
there's
this
a
while they're
swing it. You
typing?
can swing it. I mean, when I work, see, I agree with Council Mahon. I work with 2 screens at work, and I can't even begin to tell you how invaluable it is to my productivity. Being able to use, I mean, with my job, Instant Communicator, that kind of thing. Obviously, you don't use Instant Communicator, but with the different programs that you use, I can imagine there would be a lot of value. It would probably speed up their processes as opposed to clicking out of one program and going onto their desktop and clicking back into another program.
Is that the state-supplied printer?
Yes, it is.
Jesus. Their IT department up there is brain dead.
It is a monster.
But you should think,
They
you know,
are.
in terms of reconfiguration, whether that would be, I know you're limited in terms, literally the space, the
We are.
square feet you
Yes.
have.
We can look at that when we
You
look at
never
the
know.
monitors that we go, there might be some platforming that.
You never
look
know.
at.
Because you were just asking for, you know, getting new ones, not thinking about either alternatives. So think about
But it's food
alternatives, see
for
if
thought
there's a
to
little,
look into.
whether it be a larger screen or whatever. I understand the 2 screens, yeah, they take up a lot of room, but not horrendously.
Well, the price is not that much different.
That's right.
If we have to go with a bigger screen.
That's right.
It might be another $10, so.
That's right.
What's in the budget, I think we can figure it out and work with.
So think about it.
I mean, you could use a laptop with a standalone monitor, and have the laptop replace the key top so that it sits right there. You have a docking station right there, and the monitor can be set up and configured in such a way so that however, and I agree, paralegal, I absolutely agree with that.
Let's not try to engineer the department.
No, I'm not trying to,
I wasn't trying to do that when I said,
But
have you thought about that?
it's
You
a
know,
nice
I
I
haven't
option.
thought
understand.
about
We
it,
have
but
it.
it
But-
is a good thought to
Option to think
consider.
about.
But,
Yep.
but here's what,
Absolutely.
but here's what I would say.
And what is it going to take for us to beat the state over the head that before they order something, they consult with their customers?
Well, they don't care.
No, they
and-
don't.
And you don't have to do this, but obviously for us, as we had that discussion when we had to change our hours, shorten the window open time so that they could do their accounting, you just don't offer the service, which would be the craziest thing in the world. So we're trapped and we have to pay these prices and play the game. Maybe,
And do the best we can.
yeah.
And could I just add something to that, Finley? We, honestly, I do track our hours and I do track when we do transactions, and I would say 99% of the time, we are open before 9 a.m. almost every day. We really push to get that done. It is an inconvenience to the customer to show up. They come and they say, oh, town hall opens at 8:30, but you don't open till 9. But I do run reports, and I can see that about 90 to 99% of the time, we're waiting on customers before 9 o'clock. And I think that's important to get out there to all of you, because it speaks to the dedication of the employees and, you know, their concern for the customer as well.
And I'm going to vent just now because I'm not willing to add personnel in order to take care of this problem, but it's very frustrating getting the recording and having to deal with that. So I know everybody out there is probably equally as frustrated, but there's no fix to that. It's simple, for sure.
For the town clerk's department? Yes, we are the
That's right.
second
Part-time
highest
would help.
incoming, we receive the second highest incoming number of phone calls. We are second behind the police department, who runs a 24/7 operation. We are number 2.
Well, part of that is the fact that when somebody calls up and says the town of Merrimack, they send them to your office rather than the person saying, I would like the town manager's office or the public works department.
Yeah, I actually, probably inappropriately so, but I chatted with Becky and Kristen, and they say that when you guys are busy, they actually try, if there's answers they
do.
can give, they do
Mhm.
that, so
They
to try
do.
and make it
Yep.
work. But do you have an idea, now that I've thought of this, what percentage of time it does kick into, you know, taking a message?
For them to take a message, or us checking
Well,
voicemail?
no, when it kicks to the
Automatic
message,
answering?
when I can't get a human, when I
Answering
get
machine?
that message, how, do you have an idea of what percentage of time that happens? An hour a day, or is it 2/3, 3/4 of the day? Or is there any way to maybe track that to find out?
It's significant some days.
Yeah, all depends on how busy we are at the counter. We
What
do,
time of the month
we
and
do
everything.
track,
Registrations.
End of the month, which is
Sure.
very-
Yep. There could
Right.
be days that 90% of the calls are going to voicemail. Our priority is the customer at the counter first,
Right,
and then the
absolutely.
phone, and then everything else that needs to be done in the office. There are many days that Brenda and I are putting aside work that we have to do to take care of the phone, just because it's a high call volume day and we know those customers are frustrated. There are some days that we're spending an hour or 2 hours returning voicemail calls.
Oh, since we're on this, one of my best friends is 86 years of age, and his complaint was there was no place to sit down as the line moves forward. So if that's something that we could,
We've been looking at that a little bit, where to put them. We've been looking at that a little bit, where to put a chair. People are usually good about saying, hey, you're in front of me, come down.
Yeah.
But there are a couple of them that are like, you're not in line. And some of them, I've seen them and I asked, I said, do you need to take a seat? Because I know
Right.
the line when I'm walking through. Oh, no, they don't want to get out of line. And it's kind of hard to put a chair in the hallway
sure.
because it impedes.
How about a bench?
A number?
There is a bench there. There is a bench.
On the
It's
far
not
side, not on the
on the
line.
far
Everybody's-
side.
Not a lot,
Yeah.
because of the shortness of that hall.
Yeah, it's
width.
not wide enough.
The width of that hall, if you put a bench there and people are standing up in front of the bench, then they're pushed further and further.
Yeah, that's something we could talk about, yeah, I just, these
We're
things
thinking of
click
all
for
these
tonight.
things for you to do.
And I have to say, I mean, we track, you know, all of our transaction numbers, and our customers in Merrimack love coming to the town hall. We have expanded our online services just this past couple months. We put vital records online, so that people didn't have to come to town hall. And every time I study the transaction numbers, I mean, 70% are face-to-face
And they
transactions.
don't have to be.
And the other 30% are in the mail or online. It's just, it is what it is, and they like that personal interaction and coming down to the town hall.
It doesn't have to do with the convenience charge?
Some of it does. Some people do, you know, complain about the $1.50 or the $1.85, and that's their, I guess, their prerogative. But when you're standing in line for an hour or more, I guess sometimes, to me, that's worth my time. But, you know, I can't say to somebody who doesn't think it's worth their time, you know, that their concern is not valid.
Sure.
You know, time and money are constants.
Yeah.
Any other
No, they're
questions
not.
so far? Okay, anything else, Diane?
No, not unless you have other questions about anything that's in here. I think we
Anyone?
covered everything.
We did.
No? Apparently, we're all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Paul, do you know how to, where it's page 1, page 2, is there any way how do I lighten that? I know there's a way, but how do I get there?
The actual,
'Cause it's difficult for me.
yeah, I'll listen on the same thing. Okay, next is going to be community development, am I correct?
Thin that out so it's not as dark, 'cause I have different.
Eileen?
Looks like.
Community development? And that is number
Whether or
20
not.
And that's number 21?
He's jumping in to fill in the gap. The heck with this. I don't care if it's my turn.
I'm here, whether you want me or not.
Okay,
If you hit normal, if you go into, geez, view, sorry,
Excuse me just for a moment.
view, normal,
Sorry about that.
no, it takes that.
Ah,
Okay.
excellent.
Sorry about that.
Just a little computer
It's
instruction
just
here.
easier for me when I'm trying to print.
Okay, Eileen?
okay, I have made no adjustments to Tim's budget. I feel that he's presented a very frugal budget. We see some decreases in, if you look at the second line, wages, supervisory, professional, that has to do with staff turnover and lesser pay for the incoming staff. Am I in community development?
21, yeah.
Okay. Again, health insurance went down. Workers' comp went down a little bit. Tim has reduced his office supplies. There's a little increase for telephone. He can go through the rest of them, but the only thing that in here that really sticks out, and it has been discussed with you through the capital improvements process, is the additional $55,000 from $10,000 to $65,000 to be placed into the GIS Capital Reserve Fund, as has been told to you for a couple of years now. There's another $65,000 allotment that will go in there before this is finished. Is that correct?
That's what's in the CIP, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim, go right ahead.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, members of the council, thank you very much for the opportunity to present to you tonight. As Eileen said, in terms of our overall department, the personnel and operations are down a little bit more than 1.5%. The personnel is down about 2.4% due to the hiring of our new planning and zoning administrator at a lower salary than our previous. Most of our operating lines are essentially flat from last year to this year. There have been some minor adjustments to, for example, dues and fees. Jillian, our new planning and zoning administrator, is also AICP certified as I am, so there's some additional dues associated with that. The only exceptions to that really are line 8531 consultants, which I have bumped up by $5,000 to help out with some master plan implementation activities, both from zoning perspective, doing some zoning amendment work that might potentially need some consultants, to potentially helping and assisting with the sidewalk and pedestrian bicycle master plan project that's currently ongoing with the subcommittee of the planning board. That is offset by a decrease in line 8388, which is economic development. I've decreased that by $5,000 due to the change in scope of the economic development website project, which originally was going to be a standalone, but now that we're in the process of updating the entire town website, I'll be working with Paul and the consultant to work those changes into the structure of the new town website once it's completed. So I'm hopeful that once we get the overall town website up to speed and up and running, I'll be able to start work with the economic development section to bring that up to be a high quality site selection tools and other factors that originally would have been part of the standalone website that we did actually go out to RFP on this past year. And once we got the proposals back, we had about 18 proposals. None of them were really standouts. And at that point, we reevaluated myself, Paul, and a representative from the Economic Development Citizens Advisory Committee, and we decided to retrench, look at the new town website and see if we can make the money go a little bit further by integrating into the existing town website. As Eileen mentioned, there is a proposal for $65,000 to go into capital reserve for the GIS. That was originally established last year with an initial deposit of $10,000. Those funds will hopefully get us to the point where we can start doing some major data improvements, primarily the aerial photography and digital orthophoto development, which we can then create new map layers off of that. I did get an estimate from our current GIS consultant, CDM Smith, as to what that potentially is going to cost the town for the photos and the orthophoto development, which is basically taking those photos and making sure they're geo-referenced to the actual plane of the Earth so that they're spatially located. Based on the size of Merrimack, the estimate right now would be about $75,000 to $100,000 for that work. So we're well on our way with the capital reserve. If we continue to deposit as is scheduled in the CIP, I anticipate we'll be able to make some significant improvements in that in the coming years. Outside of that, I'm certainly open to any questions, but
apparently he's got one right away.
Sure.
I do. As far as the aerial at $75,000, I mean, I think it's cool and great, and I can see what everybody's done, but how would the town anticipate using that to its benefit?
The biggest part of that is the aerial photographs and all the mapping that's currently in our GIS goes back to a flyover that was done in 2007. So the information and the data that's actually in our GIS system is between 5 and 7 years old at this point. The information that we get from those photos, you can then take the aerial photographs, bring out building footprints, pavement, parking,
Right.
all the different data layers can actually then be extrapolated from those photos into new GIS layers that will then replace the out-of-date layers that we currently have. In addition to that, I'm hopeful that if we do get updated information, we'll be able to start looking at having the planning board require digital submissions of final plans and information so that we can tie information directly from the surveying and engineering firms into the GIS so that we don't have these large gaps moving forward where the information gets so out of date.
Bill?
Thank you. Change of philosophy going to economic development being as a part of our town website as opposed to a standalone. It's different from some of the things when I was served on the EdCAC several years ago. That was the drive. That was like, that's where internet traffic goes. You need to have a dedicated site that, Merrimack, boom, and soup to nuts right there as opposed to being a part. So I mean, outside of the economic piece, which I think I understand, can you shed some light
Sure.
just on the philosophical change?
The philosophical change is really based on some of the experience that some of the other communities have had with standalone websites. My previous employer, the town of Londonderry, has actually completely disbanded and abandoned their separate economic development website. They found that the information that was on that site from a cost perspective and from a technology perspective was not getting the bang for the buck that they thought it would. They actually have found that shifting that information to the municipal website, but understanding that given their virtual town hall community as well, there's the ability through virtual town hall to give that section of the website the appearance that it is something separate and different from the overall town website. I certainly wouldn't anticipate doing something that's so radically different that it wouldn't look like it's Merrimack, but there is the ability to have that formatted in such a way that it is distinct and is able to stand on its own within the structure of the existing framework of the website. They essentially found that the consultant costs and the hosting fees and everything else associated were not getting them the return on investment that they thought they would. And I've seen, likewise, I know the city of Manchester still has their separate website, has a different URL, but I don't believe it's actually separate from the municipal page. It's actually hosted concurrently with the municipal site.
And it's not like Londonderry's stagnant either.
No, not at all, especially lately.
So I guess the question, do you have an idea what our current, any data as to what our current trends are and what you hope to accomplish with the website consultant?
The biggest thing that I want to see happen is an ability to bring commercial real estate listings and site selection data into the town website. There are ways to do that now that I could essentially relink to commercial databases and whatnot, but it just doesn't. You have to search by zip code and then do a lot of digging deep in order to find information specific to Merrimack. The company that typically does these is a company called Catalyst. They're a commercial real estate web provider that does commercial listings, and they would be able to set up a system that specifically culls the information from their database specific to Merrimack so that people aren't having to wade through Londonderry and Hudson and Nashua and all the surrounding communities to find the information.
Changing tack just a little bit, going to the master plan implementation. Sure. I've been getting my updates regarding the pedestrian subcommittee of the planning board. How close are they to finalizing whatever that subcommittee has been tasked with, and how are their findings going to be implemented in our community as it relates to the master plan, which we've just spent a significant chunk of time working on?
The budget, any funds that I anticipate next year for that subcommittee would not be a significant amount. It would be probably utilizing National Regional Planning Commission for some mapping services and some GIS data that they have that we simply don't have on our current in-house system. I don't anticipate going out to a consultant to write the plan. We are continuing to plan to do that with existing staff in-house. Where they stand now, I know that the chair of that subcommittee, Desiree Fault, actually had emailed Paul and Eileen about setting up a meeting with them to try to get some feedback from Paul and Eileen before we come to the council to start throwing some ideas. I would expect that we're probably looking at summertime, probably for a draft, and hopefully by fall, early winter, for hopefully getting to a final resolution on that plan. But it would be basically a standalone document and plan that would essentially then be incorporated into the existing master plan by the planning board.
We had, at our last regular town council meeting, Tim Tenney from the Conservation Commission come and present. Tom, I hate to put you on the spot. What's the section that he needs help with? What is
111.
111?
One of my old homerooms, that's why I remember it.
Oh, I was C 120. I was C 121.
That's impressive you can remember that.
Well, you know, as you get older, you remember things from way back.
No.
Is community development prepared to assist Tim and his commission with?
We'd certainly be able to assist if anything is within the abilities of our staff to do so. I'm not familiar with what 111 entails, but if there's something that we can certainly help and contribute to, we'd certainly be more than willing to do that.
Without any impact to staff, it would just
We should not, yeah. I think we're in good shape. I do have a couple of statistics that I had actually shared on the Twitter feed in the last week or so, just to give you an idea what we've been looking at in terms of the agendas for the planning board and zoning board. There were 135 agenda items between the two boards during 2014, and the amount of time spent staffing those meetings by my staff went up from 77 and a half hours to 115 and a half hours from 2013 to 2014. So we have seen an uptick, at least in the length of meetings and the number of applications that we've seen over the course of last year.
111's the recreation properties, and there's a lot of wrinkles in deeds and covenants and restrictions, and for him to say, man, I couldn't make heads or tails of it,
If he can.
then there's a lot of stuff that it takes more than one mind to work on.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
just thank you to the department. I know this has been, our community continues to grow, and I personally want to thank you and the rest of the team that are in that office that are prepared to handle all the customers that come in there on a day-in, day-out basis.
I appreciate
And
that. It's been an interesting, I've been here a little over 3.5 years now, and save for my secretary, the entire staff has turned over in that time. So on one hand, it's disappointing to lose the amount of experience and knowledge that was here, but on the other hand, it's nice to have people in place that I've been able to choose. And I'm very, very happy with the staff that we have in place. I think we have a top-notch staff that I would compare favorably to any other community in Southern New Hampshire.
And I do want to commend you on the hiring of Joe Longville. That was a very
Jillian Harris.
Jillian Harris, excuse me. Very big pickup. I get extremely competent and knows exactly her role and how to execute it. So really nice addition to the community. So thank you. Thank you for what you and the team. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? No? Do you have anything else you want to offer, Tim?
I do not.
Okay, Eileen, all set? Okay, you're
Thank
off
you very
the hot
much.
seat. Good night. Next is going to be media. Yeah. And media is number 32. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening. How are you?
Eileen, 32 is beside number 10, just to let you know. There's wastewater, 27 debt, 10 wastewater, then 32 media. So you're sort of out of
sequence.
Go right ahead, Eileen.
Okay, just to kind of cut to the chase, the media division shows a decrease of $3,582 from last year. A lot of that has to do with the decrease in health insurance that we see in other departments and some of the other things that we were talking about. And there is an increase of $5,000 in office equipment that Nicholas can talk about.
Sure. What was that?
as well as anything else you want.
Sure. The focus in this budget that we're presenting, as far as office equipment goes, is that we really want to take some time to work on the smaller conference room across the hall, which is the Memorial Conference Room. Compared to this room, it's significantly different to not only sit in a meeting and hold a meeting, but also those watching at home. It's just a significant difference. We do have a newer cameras and newer switchers that's already in place and have been in place for a couple years now, but aesthetically, some things need to change, and that starts with some lighting, also some audio equipment that we haven't replaced yet, and some furnishings. Additionally, this room is equipped with a projector and a drop-down screen. Right now, we set that up piecemeal along with all the other furniture and stuff too. So we just want to create a better memorial conference room for the public and elected officials that are in-house, and then also those watching at home. Aside from that, we always put in a standard amount for other CATV equipment in case there's any equipment that breaks that's better, obviously, that's just going to be replaced versus maintained. This year alone, we had 2 different hard drives fail on us. Fortunately, they're backed up by a RAID drive, but unexpectedly, sometimes those things fail and we have to swap them out. So we include that in the budget. Outside of that, we're looking to purchase newer public access cameras and audio equipment for our volunteers to use, and then also new hardware for our staff. Justin and I and our part-time employee, Chris, we're using laptops that will be nearly 7 years old once this budget starts. These are video and graphics intense computers that we use, so they take a beating. So those are some of the things that we're looking to change, or presenting in this budget, rather.
Tom?
Yeah, in the memorial room, do you have anything in that plan to take care of, well, on the Conservation Commission, people are constantly coming in, and we had the Beaver Management Plan person come in and stand there and hold her map up because we had no easel in there.
Right.
So is there anything in there that that could take care of that? Either temporarily putting something in there so somebody can pull it out of the closet and throw it together.
Sure.
Okay, and then as you go forward with this thing, perhaps something more useful, or not, have something available like that so that it.
What I could do also is send out an email to the chairman of those committees and ask what they'd like to see in there.
Yeah, that would help.
Good idea.
I mean, we sort of collect those sort of things throughout the year, and we know what some of the needs are, but I personally wouldn't have thought of an easel or something to correct that situation.
Because it's not only, it just wasn't the environmental person that came in. When we get requests to review properties for the planning, from the planning board, because there's wetlands impacts, or there's there's other kinds of, the engineer often comes in, and sometimes he knows enough to bring his own easel,
Right.
but a lot of times they don't. Or sometimes it's the homeowner, the property owner that's coming in to make the presentation, and they've got all their stuff, but they're standing there trying to. We're looking at stuff on the page in front of us, but for the audience, they're
that's a good
having
point.
a tough time doing that. So
Sure.
if that could be a little bit more friendly in that regard, it would really be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think your point of reaching out to the chairs with the ideas is a good one, though.
Yeah.
Because, there might be things none of us would think of it, but because they have a need.
Yeah, every meeting is
It's a
just a
good
little
idea.
bit different. So.
Any other questions? No? Okay.
All right.
Absolutely.
Over the past 3 years since I've been here, we have been using some of the cable franchise fee and putting that into the general fund as offsetting revenue for because it was accumulating a very large surplus. So last year we took $68,000 of the cable franchise fee and put it into the general fund. This year, we're proposing to put $100,000 in there to offset taxes, property taxes.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Nothing?
Okay, cool.
You're all done.
All right, thanks.
I'm glad you were so talkative.
Next year.
From behind the camera.
Yeah, usually we see him like, you know,
Waving at you.
giving the high sign, turn your mic on.
Nick, is that your Patriots beard? That's your Patriots beard?
Has it been on?
Yeah, I feel like
There you go, good man.
It's off, no, I
feel like I'm not getting it.
He has it off at the moment.
Just so you know.
Okay. I'll work harder at it.
I'll wait for it.
We're all as guilty. Okay, I believe the next is assessing. And assessing is number 2.
May I?
Eileen, please do.
Again, cut to the chase, the assessing department shows a decrease of $6,285 from last year. There are the expenses that are the biggest in here are the office personnel, which are even as everybody else in the town is, unless they have steps. Health insurance went down. The other outside services, which is, what's the name of the company? Avatar. Is showing a little bit of a decrease. So that's about it for assessing.
Tom?
The $800 drop in dues.
Hold on a sec.
It's been running around $1,000, and now it's down to 200.
They took one of the dues out.
Have to look at last year's detail.
Yeah, Marshall Swift was running about $1,000. The Marshall Swift subscription services was running about $1,000. They called and relooked at what they really need from Marshall and Swift, and they think it's going to be about that $800 less, so about $140 they got a quote from
Okay,
when they did their budget.
good move.
For once.
So what were we paying for previously?
$940.
$940, but there was other add-ons that they, not that they weren't using, but it talked about other items that they really didn't need. They just needed the one for $140. They were paying for a large service, and they weren't using the stuff. It was just sitting on the shelf or being thrown away, so they decided to just pay for what they're using for now.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Just a comment, the assessor came out to my house a couple months ago, and I like the card that he left on the door. Yeah, I really, I think, I like the approach. It lets somebody know that somebody was, at least somebody from town was on property, and the way that the card was written, it was, you know, a lot of people tend to get a little
Snippy?
snippy when somebody from town is, you know, doing assessments. I thought the card was, it was professional, but it non-confrontational. That's the word I want to use, so.
I guess I'm showing my age too, but that came as a result of somebody making a comment. I don't remember if it was one of the council members or it was you. Okay. So we do listen to you, Bill.
I remember that.
Excellent. Nothing else?
So I just wanted to publicly acknowledge it. It's nice. I was pleased with it.
Nothing else? Okay, so we're done with assessing. Next is general government, which is number 01. I think, go ahead.
Yep. There is very little change in general government, as you can see from Relating to the wages, they are the same. The part-time wages is for,
Part-time wages is, the town council minutes, and then the, computer, the dollar value for the computer gentleman. He was offered a, when he took the position, he was offered a wage that was on the high end, so we had to increase the budget. Which is working out very well, by the way.
the part-time
The
person.
part-time, computer
Yes.
person to help Chuck
Yeah.
is
Right.
working out very well. He's helping Chuck along. Computers are
Catching
getting,
up on things?
yes, computers are getting, that are being bought are getting out to departments a lot quicker and things. And, he's given Chuck some much-needed assistance.
Much needed, yes. So, again, with retirement's up, health insurance is down, dental insurance is down a little bit. Compensated absences are what they are. If you don't know what compensated absences actually are, is we take the people who could retire, whether or not they do is not relevant. We just take and set aside a certain amount of money every year so that, so let's say somebody from the police department retired and they were entitled to 3 weeks that they had accumulated of you know, half of their sick time and all of their vacation time. It wouldn't have to come out of their budget. It comes out of this account here. And so it gets adjusted every year as people retire or people become eligible to retire. So it's almost like an auditing number that we need to have a formula to do. Then the biggest changes you see here are related, both of them relating to negotiations. One, general legal litigation, I proposed an increase of $25,000 because we will hopefully have 6 union contracts up for negotiation. And in conjunction with that, the consultant's line is up by $5,000, which is really our health insurance consultant, because this next, as I've explained to many of you on the phone today, that this next round of negotiations is going to have to involve an awful lot of complicated health insurance changes and modifications to language and that kind of thing. So we're going to, this consultant will help us with how the Affordable Care Act will affect us and is changing, and also to make recommendations on different kinds of health insurance plans that include health savings accounts or health
The exchange.
HRA and HSA. So, and as far as the legal is concerned, what I would see more than having actually having an attorney come in and help us with negotiations, which we haven't in the past. I would see that as being more one of the paraprofessionals that work for the legal firm to give us information about what they've negotiated in other communities. How do you write the language to avoid putting the town at risk of the 40% penalty
Or minimize the damage.
Right, minimize the damage, so that we can, and so that everyone understands it, so it's not just coming from me, but we did this when we were talking about health insurance the last time. We did a lot of outreach to the employees, and there was a lot of participation and a lot of knowledge that was gained from the employees and myself about health insurance and how your use affects it, and how how the richness of the plan compared to the regular public, how you can shop around for services and all that kind of thing. So It's money very well spent, and I have concerns, and they relate to the Affordable Care Act and the Cadillac tax, as I've talked to you before, and that will be coming up during the course of this negotiation period normally, which is 3 years. So 2018 is when this will come in, and I want to make sure that we are, it's probably one of the most important topics that we'll need to be discussing in terms of potential costs, increase in costs and penalties and things like that in the next few years. So I have included those two things. Let's see what else I got here. Office equipment is down because we purchased a copier that particularly last year, which we won't be purchasing. So instead of $16,000, it's $3,500. Also, under miscellaneous operating expenses, you see a big increase of $18,000 from $14,300 to $32,300, and that is offset exactly with revenues. So that's Merrimack Rocks. There's a revenue of $18,000, and there's an expense of $18,000. We're just showing it. Yeah. So capital reserve fund decreased a little bit, deposits into the capital reserve fund.
Yes. That's a combination of Milfoil Trust.
Oh, right.
We're putting $15,000. That seems to be kind of what our expenses have been for these dive teams. Donna from Community Development will be coming before you in February to discuss the summer of 15's program for the milfoil. $15,000 is what we're spending. And then property insurance, deductible and trust fund, we just have to get some money into that account. We went back several years and looked at overall, and that's more like for our deductibles. If we get into an accident, it covers the $1,000 deductible we have and things of that sort. So we've been putting the minimum in. We just need to get that fund up just a little bit.
One other thing, capital reserve fund purchases is down, or whatever that is, per HASs, are down by $15,000 because we're catching up on our software licenses that were woefully unattended to for many years.
Okay, questions, comments? Lon?
Yeah, back to, sorry. Back to the discussion about consultants. Do we have any reason to think that maybe we should be putting some effort into this budget for the Northeast Direct project?
You certainly could consider it. The only thing that I know so far, because there's so little information that's being handed out, we get generalized flow charts with no dates on them and that kind of thing. The greatest participation that I can see from this very far away distance is to update our information on our conservation properties, the endangered species, and the MVD should probably be doing work as it relates to the wellhead protection areas and that kind of thing, updating their information, because whatever we submit to the federal government as comments for or against need to contain real factual data that is not just anecdotal but real.
Correct. I agree with you, and I know there's some effort already over at the other department you mentioned, and I understand the state of flux right now that things are in terms of when or when not we might be looking for some help. I know the Concom has already sort of suggested that that they've had conversations with outside help. So that was just my query for the council and for the staff. Thank you.
Tom and then Bill.
Yeah, you, based on the meeting last night, and I sent you a memo that while it's pretty extensive, it's not complete, because there's so many details in there. But one of the things that the attorney for the site management group said was that when they go through their hearing process, it's always better to have a witness that can be cross-examined at their hearing that they conduct toward the end of their process, like within 120 days of what their end date, their target end date is. They'll hold a formal hearing, okay, and that it's always much, his advice was it's always much better to bring somebody in that can provide direct testimony, and that also can be cross-examined by the members of the board, himself as the attorney for the board, excuse me, and, you know, whoever else is there to lend weight to their testimony. The downside to that is the fact that the developer has in the past claimed that that particular group has no jurisdiction over them. But they'll go through the process. So, you know, it's the possibility.
Is that state versus federal?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, but there's, as you know, there's also the federal process where you get to submit things too.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but I mean, probably the benefit of that is that you would have that person's testimony as part of the state record that would be given to the feds, okay, which would add more strength or weight to it, because this is an administrative hearing, and I queried them on that because I'm used to them, and there's no rules of evidence, okay, so they can let anything and everything into the record, and you know they have the total discretion as to the weight of the evidence and the credibility of the witnesses. And finally, they're using the least restrictive burden of proof, which is the preponderance of the evidence. And as I explained in the email I sent you, it's the one scintilla more than 50% would trip it over to one way or the other. Okay, as to the weight of the evidence. Okay, so you know those are the kinds of things that, you know, that kind of environment where there's a lot of things in flux that you know that we're going to be dealing with this whole process. So we may want to give some consideration to putting some sum aside for the potential of having to call someone to come in and testify on our behalf, because we don't know. Right now, it doesn't look like it. The biggest thing would be the work that we're going to be doing on the endangered species pieces and the blue heron rookery, okay? But it wouldn't look like, but something else may come up, okay? There might be something else out there, and given the complexity of this thing, the probability will be that there will be something else.
Yeah,
I'm finished.
Bill?
For now.
Based on my look at the proposed route, the impacts are on Conservation Commission property, specifically Horse Hill Nature Preserve, to me being the biggest property with the greatest impact by this project. If we were to allocate monies, is it better to allocate it under general government, or is it better to up Tim Thompson's budget with his consultant line so that it's administered through the community development
Should be
budget where,
Conservation has $1.3 million.
I understand conservation is a
They
million.
can pay for their own.
And they actually have the other one. They actually have their other one that has $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, the special.
But Council Mayor, you just said that it wouldn't be a bad idea to have some money set aside.
For
So I'm-
something else.
Right, or something else.
Yes.
So I'm saying, so along those lines, wouldn't it be better to put it under the guys at community development as opposed to general government, or is it just?
I would prefer not to, because I would like to be
Yeah.
directly,
In the,
it would be to be directly under me, which is directly under you.
in the past, when we've done an appropriation on a contingency basis, which we've done a couple of times, we have put it under general government.
In the way Eileen just explained it, that makes sense. Something I hadn't, that makes sense. So I guess, I'm not opposed to it. I guess I would want to know what do we feel? Or is this maybe for a later conversation? Do we have an idea as to what is an appropriate amount of money for a contingency? And I would defer to Council Mahon with this institutional experience.
Pick it. At least,
That's just what I was thinking.
minimum.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think just, just that amount of money should, as a starting point, be okay.
But whatever the Conservation Commission has to do in terms of their own research, they could pay for that right out of their own.
And I believe
their
that,
own
and I
funds.
believe that's their intent.
Right, I believe so too.
Or
Just
at
to
least
let-
it's the chairman's intent at this point.
Yes. And just to let the public know, which is sort of off the subject and yet not, the towns are developing a collaborative where a lot of the neighboring towns that are involved with the pipeline are sending representatives, and they're gonna collaborate as a group. And Vice Chair Mahan and Councilor Boyd have volunteered their time to be involved in that, so I'm sure they will keep us abreast of any information as that process continues.
I didn't tell you this, but just today I got a call from the town administrator of Brookline, and apparently they're going forward with their meeting of various towns as well. So it's tomorrow, I believe it's tomorrow at 9 o'clock, so I'm just gonna wander on by.
9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna wander on.
That makes it really convenient for
Well,
the
I think
citizens.
it's probably town administrators or their staff.
Gotcha.
So I'll just go over there and see what's going on tomorrow.
Crash the party.
Crash the party. I've been invited, though.
Ah,
So-
okay. That's not crashing then. Okay. Any other questions? So we'll have to keep that in mind when you have final deliberation for this. Wait for Monday. Okay, next. We are under the revenues. Now, is that the 27?
No. Revenues is a
that-
separate tab in the front of the book.
What about debt? I thought that was next.
Could we do debt last? Because I have some spreadsheets to explain.
Okay, so we're gonna
Revenues
be
should be
doing
quick.
the revenues first, okay. And that's near the capital reserves?
Yeah, actually, if you look, the easier one to look at is the page 5 in the front of the book. What the town manager summary sheets that she gave out for budget documents. Nancy, that would be on a separate, on that disk, it would be budget documents. Underneath
Oh,
the
gotcha.
Revenue 1 tab
I gotcha.
for you and Finley. It would
Budget
be
documents, yeah.
Revenue 1 tab. For everybody who has the book, it's page 5 of the book.
There's a lot of books tonight. Should I go to a book?
Okay, so here's,
used one book, so
next time we're gonna get the books.
Next time, everybody's
I
getting a
don't
book.
mind this.
I know, I don't either, I figured it worth a shot. Okay, so we're looking into what, I'm under revenue 1?
For you and,
Revenue 1, okay.
That's it.
Revenue summary?
yep, that's it. That'd be the better one.
He didn't think we were capable.
No, he didn't. I noticed that.
I thought you
We
were capable.
surprised ourselves, to be honest with you.
I'm just here to help.
I know you are.
Oh, from the government,
Go right ahead.
right. To explain the revenue a little bit, as you all know, but maybe the public does not know, that when the town goes to assess a tax bill, they take the budget, the general fund budget, they subtract out about $8 million because we receive it from other sources. So, and then they come to an amount to be raised by taxes. So this non-tax revenue offsets the expenditures. And this year it's about $8,500,000 in revenue that we receive from other sources, and that's shown in 3 lines for those of you that are looking. $8,179,000, of which almost $4 million of it is motor vehicle permit fees. So about half of it is motor vehicle permit fees, and we'll get into some of the other revenues from that category if you would like. But we really wanted to bring to your attention this particular revenue item, which is the insurance rebate from the health trust. This current year, in prior years we received nothing. This current year that we're in now, we received $75,000. We actually received more, but some of it goes back to the employees because they pay a percentage. And this year it's anticipated that we're going to get $340,000, but some of that goes back to the employees, which brings it back down to $315,000. So I wanted to, it's important to me to draw your attention to this, because when we were looking at the budget, rather than seeing the budget, the tax rate go up and down and up and down, because this revenue source was not going to probably come to fruition in future years. What we did was set some money aside for a capital reserve fund that we would need and that we do need to save for, which namely is the police communications dispatch. You see a large amount of money. So in other words, rather than taking the money and reduce the tax rate by it for 1 year and then increase it by $1 for that, is it $1? 10 cents?
10 cents.
To increase by 10 cents next year, right off the bat, we are proposing to increase our savings account for something that we were going to need to do anyway. It was proposed by the police department to do 2 large allotments all at once. So in future, not this upcoming year, but the following year. So anyway, if that's clear to you, I don't know.
And then other revenues that changed were interest on tax liens went up about we're projecting about $20,000 increase. Administrative charges to other funds decreased about $20,000. State rooms and meals, with the last budget, they reinstated the program that if the state received more than $5 million more than the prior year, up to $5 million will be returned to the towns throughout the state. That equates to about $45,000 for the town of Merrimack. They did hit it last year, and we are going to get the max, and we should get that max now. That's our baseline number going forward. As of this point, anything can happen with the budget. Current use tax, $50,000. We increased that by 50 because of the 2 major developments that we have going on that had property in current use. The one is the Old Blood property down the road here, and the other one is the Tomasian Farm property that was off of Amherst Road. So those 2 should bring us some revenue in for our current use tax. Motor vehicle permits are running higher. This will be the 3rd year, so we increased it by $25,000. And even though the motor vehicle permits are running higher, the number of vehicles being registered are been about the same. So you'll see the motor vehicle road infrastructure revenue decreasing by $10,000 because we've been receiving about $125,000 a year in revenues instead of the
per
135.
transaction.
Because it's a $5 fee per transaction, and the transactions are a little bit less. And then miscellaneous adjustments here and there work out to about $2,000, the pluses and minuses all the way through.
Any questions? Comments? I see a big question mark over your head, you know. No.
No, I made my contribution this morning to the increase in the motor vehicle taxes.
Yeah, I did that too.
Happy birthday.
I did that too. Okay.
But I find it interesting, given my other role as the chair of the Rail Transit Authority, to hear that the number of vehicles has stabilized, which is in line with what we've been seeing nationwide in terms of driving habits. But we don't need that, right?
Can you pass this down? Okay, now we're going to talk about,
Debt issuance.
yeah, debt. Now is that 27?
Yes, that's 27.
And we are hopefully going to have a discussion about, right?
The highway garage.
Whether we're going for the highway garage or not. We have to make a decision.
Yes.
First of all, there's no new issuance of debt in the budget. No bonds have been passed. New bonds have been passed where we have to bring them into the budget for 2015-16 at this time. One bond is actually falling off, and that's out of the wastewater facility. The compost bond is finished. We'll be making our last payment on the compost facility this year for the old facility. As many of you know, we have a bond going forward to rehab the facility on a 10-year bond going forward to rehab the compost facility.
We have one coming off and one going on in the wastewater fund that is paid for by sewer user fees.
Right.
At the last council meeting, we talked about whether to bond or not to bond and the cost of not bonding and what that would cost you. In front of you, you have a spreadsheet, and basically what I did is that the bond, the request was for $3.3 million for the highway garage. It's a 25-year term. Interest rate is 5%. Total cost, if we bonded, would be $5,426,250 over those 25 years. If we waited a year, you have to think about construction inflation. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you see that construction inflation is running about 5%. So for a $3.3 million bond this year, if we wait a year and bond in 2016-17, the bond would cost $3.4 million, $3,464,500 for principal. The total bond cost after those 25-year payment at the same 5% interest rate would be $5,716,438, or a $290,000 delta, and that's really the cost of holding off and not bonding, waiting for a year. Over our current value, that's 10 cents over the life of the bond. It costs 10 cents over the life of the bond. On a $300,000 home, that's $30 more would be for that homeowner over the life of the bond.
And that's the difference
Total.
between doing it now versus in a year.
In a year. Then I said, okay, what happens if we wait 2 years to show you that? Once again, it's the same inflationary cost of 5%. Total bond, if we went out in 17-18 and bonded, would be $3,637,225. Same term of 25 years, same interest rate of 5%. Total cost would be $6,001,421, a difference of $575,121. or over the life of the bond, 20 cents on a $300,000 home, it's roughly around $60 over the life of the bond to the homeowner addition. Feel pretty confident about the 5% inflation. That's where the construction fields have been going with lumber and sheetrock and metal and all that's items right now.
Quick question. I know that you did the projected tax rate difference for a second and third year. What about for the first year?
First year, it's right there. That the last column after you see the 82,500, Nancy. Right next to it is a 3 cent. That's the first year cost.
Up at the very top, yeah.
3 cents, 10 cents, 10 cents, 10
Yeah.
cents, 9 cents.
Oh.
That's the first year. The second year would be 3,
On
10,
a
10,
yearly
10.
basis.
On a
Okay,
yearly
I
basis.
gotcha.
What it would cost. What this bond would be on the tax rate for that year.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So it's 3 cents, then an additional 7 cents to make it 10
10
cents?
cents
Yeah,
total.
so-
It's a 10-cent total. It
Total
isn't-
numbers.
It isn't 3 plus 10. Those numbers
Gotcha.
are the total numbers.
not
What would be-
cumulative.
No, it's not.
Okay.
And of course, if you change the life of the bond, that 290,000 and 575 would, depending on whether you go to a 20-year bond or a 30-year bond, would fluctuate. But it would
Also the
still-
same with the interest rates.
With the same with the interest
We're
rates.
just throwing a dart at the interest rates
Right.
at this point.
Right. You know,
Excuse me, I didn't catch what you said.
I just said, we use the same interest rate for all 3 years because we don't really know where interest rates are going.
Thank you.
Bill, did you have a question?
Just last year, if the bond had passed last year, what was the tax rate for the life of the bond had it passed last year?
that would be your initial, the initial $3,300,000 bond the first time.
So the 184 that I'm looking at proposed for this year would have been 184 last year.
Last
There's
year.
no,
Yeah, there's no cost of inflation right now because for the factors that if we were gonna put the bond together, we'd probably still put it on for the $3.3 million.
But what would affect, how it would affect this year's budget would be a 3 cent increase on the tax rate, and next year would
Would
be
have
an
been-
additional 7 cents.
so this year would have been 7, last year's budget would have been 3, and this year's would have been 7.
3 cents of the tax rate would be attributable to the bond.
Right,
Right,
thank you.
okay.
Now, when you're talking about like I see the 10 cents, 9 cents, that's attributable to this bond, but it doesn't tell you what happens when other bonds
Come off. I did
come
not-
off. It doesn't, this doesn't affect the tax rate. It just tells you for this bond,
This is what.
this is what the percentage would be.
Yes.
And if it were if another bond was retiring,
Right.
the 10 might be in fact,
A 0.
right,
And that would be if
because you
waited
would
to-
have dropped.
Right, and
what they owe.
if you go all the way to the last 17, 18,
Yeah,
that one would be the one where we have that first bond dropping off in 27.
oh,
That would be the one
okay,
that
so
we have.
this is 17, 18.
The last year would be 17, 18, and that's where we would have that last bond dropping off. I'm going right now to look at it. Yeah. That would be, coming off would be about $290,000 in 17, 18. $290,000 would be coming off the books in 17, 18. And we'd be making a payment in 17 of $90,000, and then the next year would be 323,000. So it would be,
Which bond is that that's retiring?
that would be the Greens Pond bond,
Greens Pond.
2002.
And then the next one is what?
That would be 2021 would be the next one, 21, 22. It was a 15-year bond.
Okay, group. Any other questions? Tom?
No.
I know we are reticent, but it is the time to make a decision. We've talked in circles for a while. Finley, do you want to say something?
I see it as an absolutely critical project, but I don't believe we have the time to do justice to the work that has to be done to bring it forward. And I don't want to think it's going to live on its own laurels and be simple to understand, because it won't be. But
It might have to come down to just a decision, make a vote. Anybody else have other opinions?
Are we doing that tonight?
Well, we have to make a decision because there has to be preparation.
We got 2 guys missing.
I understand. You can do it Monday night if you want.
You can make the, when you discuss the budget on the a week from Monday, I don't have the calendar. On the 26th, you can make the decision then if you would
It
like.
just has to be PDQ.
Yes.
If it's not tonight, there has to be a time certain that a decision is made.
It definitely would have to be made on the 26th, because we would have to include it in the public hearing documents for the
Gotcha.
12th of February.
It would be
And
nice
we'd
to be
have
able
to-
to have it done before then, though.
And we'd have to probably do a bond presentation to the council.
There you go. So, I agree with Finley. Of course, I've verbalized that before. And I know that Dan's not here, and he's, I feel fairly comfortable, again, not making a decision tonight perhaps, but I know he is, feels strongly that it should go forward.
Dan and I
We've done
spoke,
everything.
Dan and I spoke earlier this evening. He wants to see it on the ballot.
Correct.
So that's
So
a fair
if
assessment.
we don't want to make a decision tonight, I'm not going to argue with you, but let's make a decision about when we're going to make a decision. At what meeting is it going to be definitively decided?
Can we get
I
this on-
understand your concern with 2 people missing.
Can we get this on the agenda for the 22nd? No.
What are you doing? Why not Monday?
No, I will not. But, you know, you've had my, hey,
I would prefer a full 7. I think.
well,
we
it's
know
not
when
gonna,
it-
I'm not gonna be around for a while.
I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, you know I don't think it's gonna come down to like a 1 vote difference, to be honest with you. Right. So let's do it Monday. How does people feel about that? There will be a decision Monday.
Yes.
Okay?
Can you participate by phone?
No,
Okay.
because I'll be drugged.
Maybe
I
better.
might,
Maybe
I might
better.
say
No,
things,
no,
I might
no, no.
say things that
No,
you
no.
don't want to hear.
No, no. Been there, done that. That's nothing. No. No.
Sure, I'll vote on anything.
Yeah. Talk to my wife about the 3 o'clock phone call.
I knew when Tom was drugged, because when I always call him and I say, "Hi, Tom," and he goes, "Hi," and I go, "How are you?" and he goes, "Good." And this time, he actually asked me how I was.
Okay, is there
Yeah.
anything else in terms of deliberation for this? The budget? Is there anything else?
No, the only
Motion to
question
adjourn.
I have, sorry.
Absolutely, in a moment. Go right ahead, Paul, then it'll be yours, Bill.
The only question I have for you, will you be around on the 26th? Or do we need to make preparations to have a phone available for you on the Monday the 26th?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, let us know, and if we have to, we'll make preparations to have the phone up here for you to participate on the finalization of the budget, if you would like to be there.
Okay, thank you. I'll let you know. Yeah, oh, absolutely. Okay, now Bill.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by Bill Boyd, second by Tom Mahan. Thank you, everyone. Good evening.